So we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar of the role of anatomy as a movement teacher with Tracey Mellor and Stefan Westerback. Thank you very much for being here, guys, to join me to talk about the role of anatomy and how it has influenced your life as a movement teacher, your work as a movement teacher, and how it carries to influence it, how you study it, how do you, your views on it. I'm really excited to talk to both of these people. I want to say hello to all of our audience before I go and introduce you to Tracey and Stefan. Hello, I am Anna Barretxeguren and I run Evolve Movement Education. And we are running, if you are watching us for the first time, we are running a webinar series on the role of anatomy as a movement teacher. This all stems from original Facebook post that I put on my private page, and my post originally said, do you study anatomy as a movement teacher? Do you find it useful? Is it necessary, or does it get in the way? And I don't even know why I posted this, but suddenly, like, I had all these friends and colleagues commenting, and some of the people that commented on that post were Stefan and Tracey. And I really, resonated with everything that everyone was saying on the post. And I thought, well, I would like to carry this discussion outside of Facebook, outside of just talking on a kind of chat, and give a voice to people and give a voice to our community and talk about anatomy and how we study anatomy and how it touches our teaching and that of our, and the movement in our clients, if it does. So tonight, we have Tracey Mellor and Stefan Westerback. And I'm going to try to introduce them really quickly without talking too much so that they can talk themselves about themselves. But one thing to say about both of them, and the reason why I have asked them to be here together, and I'm so honored that they have agreed to come and join us tonight, is that both of them have been working in the Fascial Plastination Project, which is a project that started in, I think it's in 2018, so it's been going on for a couple of years, and is an association between the Fascial Research Society and the Plastinarium, if I'm correct. And what the project is, what they're doing is they're doing a dissection, a full human dissection of the fascial net, the fascial web. So this will culminate in 2021 at the 6th Fascial Research Congress in Montreal, where they will hopefully be exhibiting this incredible work. And the project is led by Professor Carlos Teco and Dr. Robert Slipe, and by Vladimir Chereminsky, and it's also got the assistance of John Sharkey as well. So, incredible project, and both Tracey and Stefan are part of it. So I feel really excited to hear what they have to say. So let's start with Tracey. We'll say hello to Tracey, and to tell you that Tracey actually is very near me, and we were joking because although I have known of Tracey, and I think I've seen her in different like congresses and the British Fascia Symposium, I think I sort of like kind of have seen her, but somehow we've never actually got chatting. And Tracey lives like so close to me, and we are here connecting for the first time through Zoom, which is very strange, but it's lovely. And yeah, we've decided we're gonna do it again, but she's gonna be sitting right next to me. Whether I go there or she goes here, we have to do it. So has been teaching Pilates. She's a Pilates teacher, and she's been like me, so it's great. She's been teaching Pilates since 2003, and she has her own private studio in West Sussex, near where I am. I'm in East Sussex. Tracey is also a yoga teacher, and she practices and teaches meditation as well. So I'm kind of talking for her, and she's right here, but what she writes in her bio is that she believes that building awareness of self is very important in maintaining a healthy mind and body. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about this when we're talking about anatomy as well. She has been in the world of fascia since 2005. She was introduced by Joe Avison. And she has embraced the study of fascial anatomy and human dissection as well, and has attended the summer schools at Ulm University, the International Fascia Conferences in Europe and Canada, and many, many workshops with the pioneers of this new brand science of the fascia world. As I said, she's part of the Fascial Plastination Project, and she's also a founding member of the Fascia Research Society. And in 2012, she was invited by Dr. Robert Slide to be a fascial fitness trainer in the UK. And she completed her master training in 2016. Have I said?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Do you feel represented with what I just said?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm primarily a Pilates teacher, but it's more of any movement. I mean, I've done so many, and I fix the movement, or sort of choose the movement depending on who's sitting in front of me or standing in front of me. So I mix it up a little bit. It's not very pure Pilates anymore. It's not very pure yoga either. But it's movement, and movement's healthy, and movement's good for you, and that's what I'm about, really. So, and the fascia side of it, Joe introduced me to the Anatomy Trains book by Thomas Myers, and which is absolutely an amazing starting point. And years ago now, and we worked together for a while, and that sort of set me on the journey. Met Robert, and met some fantastic people in our little fascia community. It's quite small, the fascia family. We bump into each other quite a lot, and it's just a hugely exciting place to be, to work with our fascial bodies, as well as, you know, sort of, because fascia is everywhere. It is everywhere in us. So we're working with that, and it's a very interesting way to look at movements, and it's a very interesting way to work. It's just an alternative way of looking at it, but it's very rich, very rewarding. So yeah, fantastic. And I would love to talk about the Fascial Plastination Project. Stefan and I were there last week. We had the lovely Gil Headley was there as well, who I think you've got coming on to one of these webinars at the
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be talking to Gil, I think it's on the 25th of February, yes. So that will be our 5th webinar, and then after that we'll culminate with a panel at the end.
Yeah, so we were with him last week with Carla Stecco and Robert Schleip and John Sharkey, and yeah, many other very committed and very passionate fasciites, or what do we like to call ourselves?
Great, Tracey. Well, it's a total pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the study of anatomy and your own experience of it.
Yeah.
So then we also have Stefan. Hi, Stefan.
Hello.
So pleased to have you here. So Stefan is joining us from Finland. He is a sports instructor and a massage therapist, and he's also been a physical education officer in the Finnish army in the past. But during the last 20 years, he's focused mainly on educating personal trainers, massage therapists, and coaches in anatomy and physiology. So he teaches anatomy to movement teachers and manual therapists. So he has been interested in how humans produce movement for a while now. And he was introduced to fascia in 2005 by Mika Pillman. I think I'm saying his name correctly. Am I saying that name correctly? And since then, he has been integrating functional anatomy and movement within the fascia, with the fascia focus, just back since 2005. He's also, of course, a member of the Fascial Plastination Project, and he's been working with this incredible project. And within this project, Stefan happens to be the main photographer. So you might already have seen some of his photographs out there. If you have been following this project closely, you probably have seen some photographs being shared. So if you've seen some photographs, they probably have been taken by Stefan. I met Stefan last autumn in Poland when we were both assisting Julian Baker from Functional Fascia on a dissecting course. And Stefan was the photographer on that project, and he took some incredible photographs. And it was such a pleasure to be with him in the lab and to learn with him and to explore the inside of the human body together. These experiences I feel that we have in the lab, they kind of touch us really, to me, they touch me really deeply in a level that I can't describe to anyone else that hasn't experienced them. And I feel that when I've been on a journey like that with someone, I really bond to, yeah. So there's something that is unsaid inside that lab that is, yeah, to me, it goes beyond, yeah, it goes beyond anything that you can possibly describe. So, hi, Stefan. Thank you so much for being here.
It's very nice to be here, and thank you for asking. It's a pleasure.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Stefan is going to be hopefully getting to share a few of his photographs. So for those of you watching, if you, we obviously will be giving you prior notice that this will happen. There will be a sharing of some dissection photographs, which obviously is going to be done with all respect to the work that these people are producing, but also with incredible respect and honor to the donors that allowed for their bodies to donated their bodies to the science. Not only the donors, but also their families. So we want to reiterate that when that happens. And yeah, we'll see if we get to that. Great, so let's see how we do this, because there's three of us and we will be sort of jumping from one person to the other. I don't know who will want to speak up first. I think you're probably going to be coming from a different place and also a similar place as well. So last week we had Pete Blackaby, and it was a total pleasure to talk to him about the felt sense and about anatomy. The study of anatomy from a place that can perhaps get in the way. Just before we went live, Tracey was sharing some stuff, and I don't know if perhaps it was really lovely. So perhaps you would like to continue on that, on the thought of how you feel that anatomy can be studied, whether you have had a different experience of studying anatomy from the beginning of your movement teacher career to the way that you study and experience anatomy nowadays.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were chatting earlier on, and I was saying everyone's experience of anatomy is actually quite different. We can't assume that everybody has the same experience of anatomy. When you're training, I can only speak from training my Pilates training and my yoga training. Well, actually not my yoga training, my Pilates training, because my yoga training was fascial, but it was the anatomy you learn is all very 2D. It's off a book. and you learn about your muscles and your bones, and a little bit about sort of various different systems in the body, and it's very difficult to relate that to something that's moving, because you're looking at something that's 3D or 2D rather. So when we talk about, or when I talk about anatomy, I always include the fascial system in that, because that makes it 3D, or even as John Sharkey was saying on the other day, when was it, Friday, 4D he was claiming, but it's very different. It's in fact, when you're looking at a fascial system, you're looking at something which is a moving system rather than just a mechanical lever system, which the old muscles and bones anatomy tends to be. And so when you're looking at anatomy with fascia involved, you can very much relate it to movement. You can very much relate it to the Pilates studio or the yoga studio. And it's a different way of looking at movement, a different way of looking at the body. And you're looking at the way the body feels to yourself, and looks and feels as you move. You can feel the different sort of pulls and twists that the body has. And there's an explanation in anatomy which includes the fascial system and the fascial web or net, or whatever you would like to call it. And that's one of the reasons why certainly I got involved with the Fascial Net Plastination Project, was to bring the information about the fascial system to a much wider audience. And one of the first questions that I'm ever asked is, well, what's it look like? You know, we know what a muscle looks like, it's red, you know, and we know what a bone looks like. But what on earth does fascia look like? And it's a difficult question to answer, because it depends where it is and what it does in your body as to what it would look like. So, and that's for me is the most important thing about the project, was that we could demonstrate what it does look like. And I think we've so far been really successful in doing that with the pieces that have come to the world, as it were, and with the current project. Hopefully in 2021 in Montreal, we'll be able to show far more of different levels of fascia through the body, which is hugely exciting for us. But most importantly, it will show everybody else what fascia looks like, or what it looks like in this form. But it's, you know, it's as close as we're going to get, I think, for a while. You've got pictures which are beautiful, and I really hope that we can share some of the pictures later on tonight. But just to be able to see it in a real form, and to now understand that in our wonderful bodies, and our bodies are wonderful, that we have this system which allows us to move and to feel and to understand our movement internally. Yes, I get quite carried away. I'll carry on talking for ages. A bit passionate. That's all of us. We're a little bit passionate about this. So yes. So in a nutshell, it depends what sort of anatomy you're talking about. Your old-fashioned anatomy, yes, I can understand how, you know, oh, I can't move this because I haven't moved this particular muscle and this particular bone gets in the way, but how? But if you're looking at the type of anatomy that I teach and I work with, which includes the fascial system in it, it's so useful as a movement teacher to have that there. It's useful for me as someone who practices the movements myself, but also to actually use it to explain and teach, because you can put in feelings. You know, you can't, a bone is a bone and a muscle is something that moves around, but
and this is one of the things that, sorry, I don't want to cut you.
I'll shut up and carry on.
Just when you just said a bone is a bone, this is one of the things that we were talking about last week, of this study of objects, in which anatomy ends up being so segmented that ends up being this study of this kind of almost like disembodied objects that had nothing to do with the sense of self and the sense, obviously, of movement, breath, being in the world.
Yeah, yeah, and yes, that's right.
Yeah, from what you're saying, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying.
Yeah, but yes, the sense of self and the sense of awareness. I mean, that's how we feel ourselves and how we move is yeah, through this wonderful thing called the fascial net. So we think at the moment. That's the science currently. Should say that.
Great, Tracey. Thank you. So, Stefan, I'm going to go over to you to ask you if you can describe a little bit. I mean, obviously, you're in a different country to me and Tracey, and you come from, and again, a different background. So for you, how has the study of anatomy changed over the years, if it has, your experience of studying anatomy? I know that you obviously have been in the well-being sector for 35 years, but it was 2005 that you discovered, which is, you know, about, would you say half of the year you were, half of your movement life, you were studying anatomy differently? Well, let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, yeah. So probably yes, a little bit of different background from probably you and most of the listeners, viewers. So as Anna mentioned, so I started my career in the Finnish army, and though my training there was also specialized in physical education, so let's say involved the classic anatomy, and mostly I took care of both conscripts, both athletes, and then the personnel, so physical movement and conditioning, and also with the athletes that I worked with, so physical training. So back then, as I told, now I teach both anatomy and physiology. So back then it was more focused on to produce the movement, to be in the competition, and let's say training. So more like coaching. Of course, the anatomy was there, but if you compare anatomy and physiology, so the physiology, so the with what heart rate should I train, and with what intent should I do this training, so that part was more important back then, and we are talking mid 80s and early 90s, things like that, and then when that. So then I in mid 90s I took the sport instructor exam and then studied more anatomy, and so in the late 90s I started to think that is it that easy, as Tracey mentioned, the classic anatomy. So we have the origo and we have the insertion. Okay, that's how it's beautifully printed in Sobota and Netter and books like that. And so could it be that easy, or what is there else in the human body that actually we don't know? And if we are talking mid-90s, we don't know, at least here in Finland, we didn't talk about anything like fascia and things like that. So then in the early 2000, I started also to train personal trainers, and within that I met Mika Pihlman and later on Tuulia Luomala, which both also have been involved in the FNPP project, and then we worked with some materials for the personal trainers together with Mika, and then we called it functional anatomy. And from there it kind of started that there is much more to teach the becoming personal trainers and the massage therapists than just the basic, which I call classic anatomy. And so from there actually started the kind of a changeover. So of course the physiology, so everything with training on a certain heart rate and things like that, it's important. But as I see it, so not that important to understand what is and how are we producing the movement. So so still, because my main job is at a company called Folkhälsan and Solvalla Idrottsinstitute. It's a sports institute, and the education that I'm in charge of, it's steered by the Ministry of Education in Finland. As still we are far away, even though it's not so far away, Finland, but so trends, if we're talking about fascia as a trend, because when I follow my colleagues all around the world, seems like everybody knows and just talks about fascia. And for example, the group that I now have, there are 25 persons studying, and we started back last September, and during the first day when I introduced the whole 1.5 year education, so I saw that we will start with classic anatomy, because still I think that it's easier to go that way, because otherwise it's too much if we would start with how complicated it really is if we're thinking about how it looks in the dissection room. So, and then I asked that then from there we will go from the classic anatomy to functional anatomy, so more how we produce the movement, and from there we will finish off with the fascia. And then I asked the group of 25, so how many of you know something about fascia? And I think like 4 people put up their hand, and I was, okay. I would have expected much more, but that still tells kind of the story that certain groups, of course, the physiotherapists and the massage therapists back here in Finland discusses it, but then let's say down on the field, on the grassroots, those who train at the gym and go to the Pilates studio or the aerobic classic, whatever, they don't know much about it. They don't hear much about it because it's not taken into any official education in Finland. So that's why I make it's kind of interesting, because I feel, because I've been working with you guys and with the FNPP for 2 years now, and before that we also doing dissections and so on. So I know that it's so important to get the depth in the anatomy, so then we're talking about the fascia out there, and make the becoming personal trainers and in massage therapists to know this stuff, but the official program that comes out from the Ministry of Education, so there isn't the word fascia. There is the word anatomy, and there you have to teach them the bones and the muscles and things like that. So, but I feel that if I wouldn't teach it, I would be doing a big harm. And then on the other hand, when I'm now teaching it, I think that hopefully our students, they get to know something that in many schools in Finland isn't taught. So hopefully when they will be graduated, they know something that maybe not all on the field knows, and hopefully they can make something out of it. So but really seeing it that way, that altogether, if you're looking at anatomy and movement, so I really don't understand those who on your question, is it important? Because if I remember right, there was some answer that you don't have to know anatomy to teach movement. I really can't understand how anyone can say that, because I think that of course you have to know the technique in a movement and things like that, but if you don't know what's beneath the skin, how could you ever teach how to produce movement?
Okay. Yeah, you were one of those that was like, what? What? Yeah. Great, thank you, Stefan. Yeah, yeah, there were some people, wasn't it, like that, sharing that you do not need to know anatomy to move, which is an obvious one. Yeah, you don't need to be, you know, you can be a great mover and not know any anatomy, but that's obviously not the question that we're raising here. The question that we're raising, and it's not so much do you need anatomy or do you not, but it's more about raising the question of how do we study it. So to hear you share, Stefan, that you know, in Finland, you are so involved with the national curriculum of teaching anatomy to movement teachers and body workers, and the word fascia is not part of it, and that you are trying to sort of go in that quest of like introducing the fascia world to these people who are training, and yeah, it's great to know that. The one thing that I would like to move on to is that for some of the people watching, I mean, can I ask for those people watching, if you want to put on the chat how many of you have been on the dissection room before, or if you have any questions around these. Obviously, for those of us that have experienced dissection and that do use dissection as a means to try to understand the body to a deeper level, yeah, so if I can speak just a little bit about my own experience of it, which I wanted to talk to you guys about, is for me, the dissection allows me to be in another level. And a lot of the people, the question that I get asked is, but how can you study movement in an inanimate body that no longer feels, breathes, moves? And my answer, and I didn't really understand how I could see so much movement in something that was so not moving. And I think is by the mirror of that polarity for me, that sense of like, I'm seeing death, I'm looking at death in, you know, I'm touching death for however many days I'm in the lab. And to me that in some way, by the absence of something, I learn about that something, so that when I come back to my studio to teach moving, breathing, incredible bodies that I get to experience teaching movement, I am in absolute awe. I'm in absolute awe of their movement, and somehow my ability to enhance their experience of movement has increased, and I can't even explain how that is. But for a lot of people that I come, you know, to talk to, they see the fact that they're working in the lab as almost as a hinder to the understanding of movement. So I don't know if you have something to say about, you know, your experience in the lab and the relationship of, you know, working with a dead body and understanding movement from that.
Shall I go first?
You, Tracey. Yeah.
Right. Well, first of all, it's a massive privilege to be able to be in a lab. I count myself very lucky to have as much lab time as I have had, and yeah, it's wonderful that people are going to, you know, have donated their bodies, and they are donors. So it's yeah, first of all, it's a massive privilege, and I thank every single one of them. But when I look at when we're in the lab, yes, the form that's on the table in front of us isn't moving, but it has moved, and you can see the effects of movement on the tissue and the form there, and you can almost see it in the actual tissue. Now when we're looking in a lab, we're working in a lab. We've been working directly on the connective tissue, the fascial tissue, and that does change depending on the loads put on it. So if somebody is always, I know, for instance, using their right hand side, you're going to see a difference between the right hand side and the left hand side. And so the tissue that is there that we're looking at does have the remnants of movement there, and you can follow the movement of the body through that tissue. So it's not every single form I've looked at and had the privilege of working with has been very different, because they've used their bodies in a different way. A lot of it is we never know who they are or what they've done, but you can look at different muscle structures and connective tissue structures and think, well, this person was obviously a very fit person, or this person was obviously did this sort of thing. So it's you can see the movement there, even though there isn't movement in the actual form. And from that you can take that on. You can take the connections that you do see into, in my case, into the Pilates studio, and you can see that sort of you don't get a stopping of movement once you get past a joint. It doesn't sort of start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. You can see it's a continuous thing. It's a continuous flow in the body, and as soon as you see a live person on the reformer, you can see that is a nice flow through the movement, and not a stop, start, stop, start. So that for me is massively important. And also it's the fact that you have depth. You can see the depth when you're working, that there's I don't really want to use the word layers after last week, because we had long conversations about layers last week, but you can see the different depths, and how one depth will slide over another depth and move through and allow the movement of vessels and muscles, and you can see how that happens, and I don't think you can get that from a book, and I don't think you can get that from your classic anatomy that you're taught. It's that's definitely it's the 3D or 4D effect of the new anatomy. I mean, and fascia's always been there. I mean, it's never, it hasn't suddenly appeared in the last 30 years. It's always been there. It's just never been understood or seen. And now we've got all the new technology around. We can look at it. We don't have to be looking at a dead body to find it. We can actually see it in live bodies with ultrasound and little cameras that they put underneath and sort of into the body, and you can see it actually working. And now it's there, the research is happening, and we're discovering so much about this tissue which we've been just ignoring and throwing away for years and years. And I think that's hugely exciting. So yes, it's yes, it may be a form which doesn't move on the table, however it's fixed. But to me, there's the history, sort of almost like there's a history of movement in that body still, and you can take that into the studio, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I do feel a lot of the time being in the lab, looking at what you are describing is it's almost like looking at a beach when the tide's gone out, and you can see the memory of the water having been there and the movement being there, but now the sand is still in all this shape.
I quite like sort of someone used the word echoes. It's the echoes of movements are still there, and I think that's a lovely way of putting it. But yeah,
definitely something I resonate with. Stefan, we go over to you. I don't know if you want to maybe use this opportunity to share a couple of images as well.
I could maybe say something first, and then we look at the time, and but hopefully we can share some images. So if I go back to the beginning of let's say that I started to think that there must be something else. So maybe probably the first way after that we have started to discussing this thing with Mika Pilman was then to starting to watch Jill's videos, dissection videos, which are out there. So thank you, Jill, for sharing.
Can I just stop you for a moment, just for those watching, that you are talking about Gil Headley's videos, Integral Anatomy.
Yes, so there is really much of his material for free out there. So probably spent hundreds of hours being in the dissection room with Jill, and then from there, that this is something that I really want to do, and then we come back to to Finland, and because as a massage therapist, as a physiotherapist, you don't have any possibility to do a dissection course in Finland. So it's strictly for the medical doctors. So that's one big problem, and that's maybe one thing that makes it that it's not that widespread here as it is in those countries where you can do the dissection courses. So from there, I had the possibility with Mika and Tulia to start to do horse dissections. And okay, now somebody thinks that, okay, it's a completely different animal. Okay, the human is one animal and the horse one, but the structure, so if you think about the muscle and the fascia, the connective tissue, so it's exactly the same. Okay, the proportions are a little bit different, but it's exactly the same. So it's a great way to start to learn the fascia stuff. And one huge difference is that usually all those that we have done with Mika and Tulia, it's fresh. So it's the horse could be like it could be like 20 minutes since it has been put down. So it's really fresh. So the movement and everything that could be quite different in the lab with the formaldehyde and depending on what kind of cadaver you have the possibility to work with. So it's still it's different. So this has been a great opportunity, and from there, maybe depending on probably the personality. So maybe it was easier the first time to go into the lab after doing horse dissections. I don't know, but it's been really great, and probably you can't describe it as Anna. You also try to describe it, and it's difficult, but every minute in the lab you learn really much, because you see all the stuff that isn't in the anatomy book. So every square centimeter, every layer, even if as Tracey said, somebody is in that opinion that there is layers in the human body, but it's still, in my opinion, it's easy to describe stuff inside in layers. So I will be using it, but so all the stuff that is between the muscles that are beautiful in the pictures in Sobota and Netter and things like that, but all the stuff in between, and then as Tracey described, that if a person is right-handed or left-handed, so you see thing in the dissection room that you just can imagine when you see the people in the gym or on your table for before a massage and things like that. So you see that there is something going on, but then when you have had the opportunity to see person on the dissection table, and you see the differences between the right and left arm, just for one example, and you have seen that, okay, we have a right pectoralis major and the left pectoralis major, but actually if you look, so it's one piece. You could easily dissect it as one piece, and you see that it's so hard connected via the sternum, so all the fascial connection there. So Tracey described the movement and everything. So I really think that you understand the movement in a completely different way after that you have spent okay, maybe not the one day in the dissection room, but when you have spent 1 week in the dissection room. So nowadays when I get a new client and it's a sore elbow or shoulder or back or something, so I kind of see the person still in the layer. So the person have described something, so I know that there is a certain kind of pain or problem. Then I see one layer is the person, for example, on the table or standing or whatever. Then I see the vision from Netter. So there is the scapula and there is the muscles beautifully painted on the scapula. And then I kind of take pictures that I have in my mind from the dissection lab and put them on there and see all the connectivity from here and from there, and starting here, going somewhere. And then when you're seeing people with different problems, okay, we don't know the history of those persons, but still you know that there's been something. So then I picture those different versions of the scapula with everything on. When I see the person, and from there I start to picture it. What can I do? What kind of treatment? What shall I do with my hands? So the hands-on thing, and what kind of movement should I try to teach this person to do or avoid? So things that you never can imagine without that you have been in the dissection room and you've seen all the stuff. So I think it's a huge benefit as a hands-on worker or a teacher to have seen the stuff, and so you can try to give the vision and that, even though they are just looking at the classic anatomy book.
Yeah, it adds another layer. It adds another layer to your teaching. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it gives you, it's just a different dimension. I think that's the thing. You're coming in from a different way of looking at the body.
Yeah. One thing that was coming up for me when Stefan, you were describing about the pectoralis, you know, you were saying, I mean, this person might have, and you were imagining this person with a difference between the right and the left in the arms, and then also in the pectoralis. And for me, what comes up a lot of the time is the moment that we enter the visceral world and we go into the world of organs, and we start to see that those differences are not just staying to the musculoskeletal structure, but that actually you can then see the way that the visceral fascia has arranged itself and perhaps created certain level of adhesions, maybe even, you know, the positioning of organs or the positioning and the size of organs. For me, that is one of the things that really has enhanced my my teaching, to add that layer of the relationship, because in the books, often the visceral world is in a different section to the musculoskeletal,
yes.
Even a different book altogether. And having a real interest in viscera and the way that viscera get influenced by our movement and our breath, and the other way around. Yeah, for me that was coming up. I was sort of envisaging this difference in the lungs and in the heart, the way that the diaphragm is embedding the pericardium, and you know, I was sort of visualizing that when you were describing these different pectoralis. Yeah. Now, guys, I am really aware that I'm having a really great time talking to you, and it's 7:53 on my computer, 9:53 for you, Stefan, in Finland, and we did say to people that we were going to take 45 minutes, so we're already over time, and this is so we have got one person wanting to ask a question. So if you guys watching want to go to the questions and answer the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, you can then enter a question there. In the meantime, maybe Stefan, I don't know if you want to share a couple of images. For those watching, Stefan is going to be sharing a screen, and is going to be sharing a couple of images from the, is it from the horse dissections, Stefan? Or is it from the human net?
There is, it's not from the FNPP, but there, I have just chosen some pictures, so let's see in what order they are there.
Okay.
So
before you share this, if I can just reiterate, I know we've talked about it already, that we do this with all due respect to the donors of these images and their families, and that anyone watching, we expect them to obviously have the same level of respect. If you are watching and you want to not watch this, of course, you say goodbye to us, or just go away, make a cup of tea and come back in a bit when we're having the questions and answers. So up to you, Steph.
Okay, let's hope that. So do you see something now?
We're seeing you. We're seeing your screen.
Okay, so what do you think we have here? This is taken with a microscope camera, so it's not a regular camera. So this is something like almost 100 times the zoom. So it's a human bone cut vertically. So this is the how the bone really look when you start to go inside. So nothing that you've probably seen in the classic anatomy book.
Incredibly fluid.
Yes. Even though if it's the material is hard, of course, but it kind of looks like fluid. On this picture, we are probably something that you guys and the watchers have seen. So we have kind of the network with the fascia. So you see the different layers. I think that these are layers, but but I know that if some of the persons that were
you can make them into layers, can you? You can have them into layers.
So,
I like layers too.
Yeah. So because you see, or at least you see the depth, you could probably see 3 different layers, and you see the angles. Last week we had a lot of discussion about the angles, but here you could say that it's kind of crossing like something like 90 degrees, even though there has been some study that it might be it might be something else.
So the fiber direction, just for so we can like go into like for those watching, because obviously you share that, and we, you know, me and Tracey go, yeah, great. Just the, you know, what Stefan's talking about is the angle between this is what I think you're talking about, the angle between the different direction of those collagen fibers that are being shown on the picture.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And here, this is a horse, as you see. Some of the pictures are quite clean because there is no blood in the dissection room with human cadavers, and of course with the horses there is. But here you see the loose connective tissue. So there is 2 muscles a little bit taking apart, and this is with the regular camera, but of course zoomed in. So you see kind of what Gimberto has been showing. Going in with the small microscope camera here in a larger proportion. So this is the connective tissue, and it's.
So this will be the stuff in between those layers, which is one of the arguments to say that there aren't any layers, because actually you have to break this stuff before you can actually separate it into layers. So there is a continuum. There's a continuum in this net of collagen and fibers and
as Tracey told, so everything is attached to everything. So there isn't different parts flowing around in there. So this picture has been out there, or a part of it was on the Facebook page Fascia Stuff, where you all are welcome if you are not there yet. So
so Rosa has just shared that on our chat. For anyone watching, if you want to go to the chat, there is a link to the FasciaNet, the Fascial Plastination Project Facebook page.
So this is the greater Omentum of a horse. We have it in the humans also. So again, of course, the dimension is a little bit bigger here, but still, if you just, when I zoomed in and put it on the fascia stuff, there was a lot of guessings what it really is. So these are also these kind of stuff that if you see a drawn picture of this, it's not really the same what you see in an anatomy book, and even though this isn't the muscle, so what the personal trainer is mostly thinking about, but this is still a part, as Anna told. So a lot of additions and whatever can go on in this part of the body also, and being okay or then being not okay and making problems in.
Can I explain one thing, Stefan? I keep cutting you, but I just want to explain because I know what you're talking about. But when Stefan is talking about people were guessing, it's because Stefan plays this game on Facebook. Which is, well, I'm saying it's a game.
Yes, it's a game.
He was a picture and he asked all of us, I'm saying all of us, I am included in this because I love it when he does this. And he goes, hey guys, here is a picture of taken. What is it? And then we all go, oh, it's a great Omentum. Oh, is I don't know, is a valve in a vein. We guess what it might be out of our, I don't know, thoughts. And yeah. Back to you.
Okay, so here is this is a closed with regular camera, so not microscope, and 2D veins leaving the heart. So it's human heart, and we are very close, and of course looking completely different. So kind of fun sometimes with the pictures, even though it's the hardcore stuff. We're talking about the heart, but so you can do those pictures kind of artistic, because if we just cut out the two holes in the mid, it could be anything. Again, it could be two pipes from a motor or whatever, but so these are all also these kind of things that you see in the, or might see in the dissection room, and tells you I think million stories, and in a completely different way than looking at a picture of a heart or a drawn picture of a heart in the anatomy book. Shall we still take some pictures, or are we over time already?
We've got one question on the questions and answers. Do you want to do one more picture and then we go into the questions and answers? There's two questions. How are you guys with time, Tracey and Stefan? Those watching, they can disconnect. But how are you with time? Because it's already 8 o'clock.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
You're okay. Yeah.
So
okay.
we have this one, and probably everybody sees what is going on. So we have the bottom of the foot and quite a lot of stuff already taken off. But so this is what you also, depending of course on which dissection course you go, so how scheduled it is, or how you can do things there. But you can, at least on some of them, you can really explore. So you can see a thing, and you can, if you are interested in the foot, you could explore the foot, or is it the shoulder or the knee. So even though if we were supposed to talk about fascia, okay, there is some fascia on that picture also, but if we are talking about structures and is anatomy important for a movement teacher? So knowing what is going on that picture, and what are all the parts that you still see on that picture. So I think it's important, because you never find something like that in the classic anatomy book. So when you have seen things like this in the dissection room, I'm quite sure that you are maybe a little bit better teacher because you have a vision of the stuff going on for real inside the skin. So I really encourage everyone that just has the possibility to take a dissection course. So I really, and of course, as we last September were together with Julian Baker's courses, of course Julia's courses are really great.
I think this answers Medina's. Medina has a question. I'm going over to the question and answers. So she's asking, she's saying that she feels that we three are conveying in an inspirational way the benefits of movement teachers and body workers of taking part in dissections. And then she asks, in our opinions, what would be the ideal entry into this kind of experience? Should I go over to you guys? I know what I first did when I went into it. Can I just say, I don't think that dissection is for everyone. I've seen people that really don't want to do dissection, and I completely think this is not for everyone. This is something that you go into out of choice, and it for some of us, it really touches us, and we continue to do it. I have done it in very different settings. I'm studying a postgraduate diploma in anatomical sciences at the University of Edinburgh, and I have been in dissection labs. I've been in one in Aberdeen, at the University of Aberdeen, where the dissection room was very much insertions, origins, innervation, and it was very classical because I was studying clinical anatomy, and that's one way of going into it. But there are obviously all these different fascial dissection courses running, and the first thing that I ever did years ago was to do a 4-day, I think. That's quite a lot of days for a first timer, I think. Over to you, Tracey and Stefan, if you've got ideas to offer Medina.
I think, I mean, I got it. My first dissections were in Germany and summer schools, and it was a fascia summer school, so we were looking at fascia there. And I wasn't actually doing dissection. I was watching, and I think that's probably a nice way of entry there. It's yeah, you do have to take a deep breath when you walk into that room for the first time and be totally aware of what you were doing. But as an entry level, if you go onto onto YouTube and that, say Gil Headley has got the most amazing free to everybody to view dissections, and he's such an inspirational and wonderful teacher. You will learn so much from doing it through that medium. And Julian Bacon, who we've mentioned already, he does sort of some, I don't know whether he can still do them in the UK, but certainly he offers.
He's doing one it's a 2-week one. I don't know whether that's the best way to start.
I mean, I did one with him, which was just a day one once in London, but I think that he may have had to have stopped doing those ones because he can't get the lab time. It's very expensive to be going to a lab, and that might be a sort of a problem for many. So it's not something that you can just £20 and you can go in for the day. But you can you can go to the butcher's and have a look there. I mean, you don't have to have a sort of a human in front of you. You can go to the butcher's and you can pull the layers apart. You can look at a muscle and how it connects in, and so you can, yeah, it's quite easy to see anatomy without actually having to look at a human cadaver to do it. Yeah, so there are many ways of doing it, but if you're really interested, yeah, YouTube videos are a great entry point, and then you can make up your mind what to do after that.
Stefan, have you got any thoughts? Any other ideas?
Quite the same thoughts as Tracey had. So you should probably start and look at the videos, and if that makes you more interested, so then probably it's the right time to start. And then, as Tracey said, they are not cheap, so you should think that where is a possibility, and maybe for a first timer something like 2-3 days could be quite good to start with, because 5 days in the lab is really heavy.
Yeah.
Right, let's go over to another question. You see, questions are growing as we're talking, so I'm going to keep you here, guys, until 10 o'clock at night. Stefan, you'll still be up at 1 in the morning in Finland.
Yes.
So we've got Sarah. Sarah is asking, or is saying, thank you for the very interesting conversation. And she's saying that we talked about how we feel ourselves through our fascial net. We talked about the felt sense within the fascial net. And she's asking, could we please elaborate upon this comment? Because she's saying, my understanding is we sense ourselves through our sensory nervous system. So does anyone have something to say about this? I do, but I feel like I've taken a lot of the time. So when I honor
my first comment on that is, where does your sensory nervous system live? Well, it lives in the fascia, and it's you have your receptors which send the information of how you're feeling, or how the outside world, how you're perceiving your outside world, and how you feel yourself, and it all goes up via your fascial connection. So therefore, yeah, the fascia is your largest sensory organ in your body. It's got greater receptors than your eyes and all the rest of it. So therefore, we should be listening to it. So yeah, it's
yeah.
Fascia. That's the reason why.
So there's research out there on the level of free nerve endings that are embedded into the fascia. And when we're talking about fascia, we're usually talking about fascia in a broad way, as in the fascial system. We're talking about the different layers of fascia, as in the superficial fascia, for example, is full of free nerve endings, especially areas like the fat pad in the foot, which is incredibly rich in nerve endings that are able to pick up senses of vibration and pressure. And so there is the free nerve endings, as well as obviously there's been the scaffolding of the nervous system. I want to talk about the embryo, but I'm not going to go there because we'll just be here until forever. But in the way that we create that in-between layer in week 3 of embryonic development, and which is where then we develop our fascial system. But I'm gonna, Stefan, what do you have to say about this?
I must fully agree with Tracey, but is it okay to go on, because I see a question down there. Linus,
do you want to answer the next one? Should we answer the next one? There's someone asking about so is Gonul Elpedze. I hope I'm saying your name.
The last one that is there with Linus.
Linus, you want to answer that one? Okay. So Linus is saying, speaking of layers and having expressions like that, getting confused all the time, do you feel that our language, like in relation all the new, do you feel that our language, like in relation all the new marvelous findings that are being done nowadays, and being able to express them? So this is sort of language thing going on there. And is there going to be a hindrance to pass on the knowledge?
Okay, so I know Linus over Facebook, and
it's
okay,
his book is at the back.
And probably one thing that we have been discussing, not with Linus, but for example, in the FNPP project, and one thing that I told also Anna and Tracey, so for me, with let's say Swedish as the mother tongue and Finnish as let's say almost a mother tongue, for me it's easy to use the word layer because probably there are better words to describe that in English, but when you don't speak English as your mother tongue, so to answer Lina's question, as long as hopefully the whole world is interesting in anatomy and in fascia and things like that, if we want to use just certain words for a certain structure or whatever, then there should be a standard, and who will ever write a standard that the Fascia Research Society that you can only use this word and this word and this word. So as long as the whole world is discussing the, probably there will always be researchers or people or writers from country A or country B using different words to describe the same thing, and as Linus asked, probably a little bit confusing, but hopefully we then can explain what do we mean by using the word A or B. As Anna told, so you are not either speaking English as your mother tongue, so it's difficult. It's so on this basic level as we are talking now, I'm probably quite fine with the English, but then if I had to describe something more sophisticated or in an academic way, then my language skills isn't there to do it in that way. So probably always will be a little bit of this and that. Yeah.
I mean, I think
what do you feel, Tracey?
Yeah, I think it's quite it's a good question. I think sort of the amount of problems we had describing fascia in the world,
yeah.
and the arguments and the sort of disagreements and the medical way of describing fascia and the definition of it, and then the sort of the people like ourselves who are in the manual and movement world is another completely different description. And that will carry on, I think, although they've got something written down now. But if you're dealing with something which you've never dealt with before, and we're trying to use old language, it's like when we changed currency, everyone still talked in pounds, shillings, and pence, and yet we've been using the pennies and the decimal, not decimal, it's like our currency now, for years, but people still talk about pounds, shillings, and pence. So it's language is very emotive. It's something which, it's something which we've got to look at very carefully when describing what we're seeing, because I mean, apart from that, someone will look at the same thing and see something completely different. So so we've got to be very, very careful about that. The word layers, it was just quite funny last week. We were when we were in Guben, there was an ongoing discussion about what we called these things that looked like layers but weren't actually layers.
It's something that keeps coming up, doesn't it, with this one of the pictures that Stefan has shown, in that the collagenous relationships between one layer and the other layer, and how the fascia speech. He here has heard of the fascia speech, who has listened to the fascia speech, and that in between relationship world interface, can be called so many different things, from like, it could be called perifascia, or it could be called there's so many different words that have been given to this, because it has not had a nomenclature in the anatomy book up until now. We're looking at it, and it's like we're having to talk about something that hasn't been named in the world of anatomy, so we're having to use a new word. And then obviously, when we are speaking in the terms of, for example, the concept of having layers in the body, you know, the concept of it needs to be what we're talking around, as opposed to obviously, you know, using the word layers as a purpose for understanding where we are in the space and the relationships. But then, is it the appropriate word to be using for something that hasn't got layers?
Yeah, it's just human nature to try and simplify things. I mean, we have lots of different models, and you know, so that just tries to simplify a very complicated subject into something which is easily understood. And if describing things as a layer makes it easily understood, well, then we'll go there, because that's just moving the conversation on. But it's yeah. So that's.
But also as a teacher, you can't always go the hardest way, because then your students will not understand it. So you have to simplify, as Tracey told. So then I think, and then when a lot of the academic stuff, or most of it, is in English, so then I have to translate it. Probably I have to translate it into Finnish. And from Finnish, I have to translate it into Swedish, because I teach in both languages. And then, so I have to juggle between three languages, and you can't find the exact word for this into this language and into this language. So you are always in the middle, and you don't know, okay, what should I say? So you have to simplify.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could be a webinar on its own. Just the nomenclature of fascia on its own. You know, what do we call fascia? I guess, you know, even last week when we were talking, Pete was talking about fascia as, you know, when I think when he was describing fascia, the way that I was seeing it is that he was seeing as a piece of fascia, as in your tensor fascia lata, for example. I think he mentioned the tensor fascia lata. So there are different ways of talking about fascia, anatomically and classically in the medical world. And you know, when you mention fascia, not the same. And then we can go into like, what is fascia and what is connective tissue, and let's not start that discussion. Let's go and answer. Let's go and answer Gonu, because he's been left there in the last question. So he's saying, hi, the fascia is excellent tissue in our body. What do you think about the contractibility of contractile ability of fascia? Thank you.
This is, I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this very simply. That's the thing. I think the simple answer, yes, the fascia has got contractibility. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. I mean, it's there are some excellent papers out there on why and how, and they've definitely had. I think it's some of it's Robert's papers. I think Robert Schleip's papers.
Yeah, Robert Schleip talks about
that. And he goes into the ability of fascia to contract. So it's just not just your muscle fibers that contract. It's the fascia as well. I think that's probably the simple answer.
Yeah.
But you guys can add to that if you want. But there are some really good papers out there, and they're quite new, and there's some new stuff coming out as well about it, because he was mentioning that last week to us. So it's
oh, great. I look forward to reading that. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say apart from that. Yes, Robert's Life has got a few papers on the contractibility of fascia, something called creep, which is one of the abilities of fascia as well. Stefan, have you got anything to say to Gunnar about this?
No, I can fully agree with Tracey on that, and then again, if we start to think about where all places in the body we have fascia. So if you're thinking about the endomuseum, so if it doesn't live with the muscle fibers contracting, so what should happen if we just simplify it again and try. So there must be some sort of way for the fascia to contract. So I would say yes. But of course,
I would say if you're interested in it, look up myofibroblasts. They're the cells which will do that. So it's
yeah.
Great. Brilliant, guys. It's been such a pleasure. It's almost 8:30. We've been going for an hour and a half. I don't feel like we have, but apparently we have. Time is infinite, isn't it? But at the same time, such a weird concept. I am so I'm so honored that you and grateful for you to join me on this conversation, and I have enjoyed myself so much. I would like to share on the chat. We're going to share a couple of messages to all of you guys with websites to both Stefan and Tracey, and where you can find out more about them and follow them, and just look at what they have coming up. If you want to continue the discussion, for anyone that would like to continue the discussion, you can join us on our Facebook group, which one thing that happened last week for those people watching was that they came to the Facebook group and they didn't answer the questions. We do need you to answer the questions, otherwise we can't accept you in the group. And this is just, a procedure that we like to follow to make sure that we all are on the same page. So Rosa will also share a link to that Facebook group, just so if you want to continue the discussion, we can carry on talking there. And yes, next week we continue the discussion, yet with someone different again, another person coming from the Pilates world, Shari Barretxeguren, who won't be just very near me like Tracey is, but she's going to be sharing from New York. So we'll be talking to her next week, and we look forward to doing that. If you want to join us, again, on the chat, on the comments, you will have the link as well. We'll put the link on Facebook, and it's also on the event if you are on the Facebook event. Yeah, I don't think there is anything else that I have to say in terms of the logistics of how this whole thing is run. The recording, for those that are not watching, but that's not relevant here because we're all watching, it's going to be coming out on Thursday. You're all watching, so why am I talking about the recording? Well, you might want to watch it again. You might have enjoyed it so much, you want to watch it again. Tracey, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Well, yes, yeah, come up anytime, or perhaps when I'm down in Brighton and Hove, I'll pop over.
Please do get in touch. Let's arrange and let's do some movement, or let's do something together, have a cup of tea or something, because this is absolutely crazy that we are meeting in this way.
Well, I'll probably see you at the Fascia Symposium if I don't see you in Brighton beforehand, because that's coming up.
I will see you at the Fascia Symposium, definitely. I will definitely be there. And Stefan, thank you so much for joining. I haven't seen you since the autumn, so it's a total great to get to catch up with you and talk. And we'll continue to talk on Facebook and places. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Yeah, to everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. If you have anything to tell us, come to the Facebook group. I'm going to press the button and say goodbye now. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.